Nkechi was a bright and cheerful 13-year-old girl, full of curiosity and dreams. She loved to read stories, help her mother in the kitchen, and play with her friends after school. However, there was one thing she struggled with: mathematics. No matter how hard she tried, the numbers never made sense to her. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division all seemed like a confusing puzzle she could never solve. Her parents, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Adan, noticed her struggle. Mr. Smith, a businessman, and Mrs. Adan, a teacher, valued education greatly and wanted Nkechi to succeed in all subjects. They tried to help her, but their methods did not work. "Nkechi, you need to try harder," her mother often said as she watched her daughter scratch her head in frustration over her assignments. "I am trying, Mama," Nkechi would reply, her voice full of frustration and sadness. "But the numbers just don't make sense." Her father sighed one evening as he watched her struggling over a simple math problem. "We need to get her a private tutor," he suggested. Mrs. Adan agreed. "Yes, I think that's the best solution. If she gets individual attention, she might improve." And so, the search for a tutor began. One Sunday afternoon after church, Mr. Smith met an old friend who recommended a man named Teacher Brown. "He's one of the best mathematics teachers I know," the friend said. "He has helped many students improve their grades." Excited by the recommendation, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Adan arranged a meeting with Teacher Brown. The following evening, Teacher Brown arrived at their home. He was a tall, middle-aged man with a confident smile. He wore neatly pressed clothes and carried a black leather bag filled with books and teaching materials. "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir," Mr. Smith said, shaking his hand firmly. "The pleasure is mine," Teacher Brown replied. He then turned to Nkechi and smiled. "And you must be Nkechi?" "Yes, sir," Nkechi said softly. She wasn't sure how she felt about getting a tutor, but she wanted to make her parents happy. Teacher Brown sat down with them and asked a few questions about Nkechi's struggles with mathematics. "Don't worry," he assured them. "With patience and practice she will improve. I have taught many students and I always get results." Mrs. Adan and Mr. Smith were pleased with his confidence. "When can we start?" Mrs. Adan asked eagerly. "We can begin tomorrow," Teacher Brown replied. "The sooner, the better." That night, as Nkechi lay in bed, she felt nervous. She didn't like math and she wasn't sure if a private tutor would help. But she trusted her parents, so she decided to give it a try. The next evening, the first lesson began. Teacher Brown arrived on time, carrying a few books and a notebook. He greeted Nkechi's parents politely before settling into the study room where the lessons would take place. "Nkechi," he said, "today we are going to start with something simple. Let's go over multiplication." Nkechi nodded and listened attentively as Teacher Brown explained the basics. Surprisingly, his teaching style was different from what she was used to at school. He spoke calmly and broke things down in a way that made sense. For the first time, she understood some of the concepts. "That's correct," Teacher Brown said when Nkechi answered a question correctly. She smiled. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Days turned into weeks, and Nkechi started feeling more confident in mathematics. Teacher Brown was patient, and she found herself improving little by little. Her parents were delighted. "She's making progress," Mr. Smith said one evening. "I'm glad we found Teacher Brown." Mrs. Adan nodded in agreement. "Yes, I see the change in her. She doesn't complain about math as much anymore." Nkechi herself was happy about her improvement, but deep down she still didn't love mathematics. It was hard work and she would rather be reading her favorite storybooks. Still, she appreciated Teacher Brown's help. But then something changed. At first it was small. Teacher Brown started giving her extra compliments. "You are a very intelligent girl," he would say. "And you are also very beautiful." Nkechi found his words strange, but she brushed them off. Maybe he was just being nice. Then he started touching her shoulder when explaining things. His hand would rest there for longer than necessary. Nkechi felt uncomfortable, but she told herself she was imagining things. One evening, after her parents had left the study room, Teacher Brown leaned closer than usual. "Nkechi," he said softly, "you are special. I enjoy teaching you." His voice felt different. It made her skin crawl. Nkechi's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to leave the room, but she was afraid. That night she couldn't sleep. Something was wrong, but she didn't know what to do. The next day she gathered the courage to tell her parents. "Mama, Papa, I don't want Teacher Brown to teach me anymore," she said hesitantly during dinner. Her parents looked up in surprise. "Why, my dear?" Mrs. Adan asked. Nkechi swallowed hard. "He makes me uncomfortable." Mr. Smith frowned. "Uncomfortable how?" Nkechi hesitated, then finally said, He touches me sometimes and he says strange things. Her parents exchanged glances. Nkechi, Mrs. Adan said, are you saying this because you don't want to learn math anymore? No, Mama. I'm telling the truth, Nkechi said, her voice shaking. Her father sighed. Teacher Brown is a respected man. He's only trying to help you. Don't imagine things, my dear. Nkechi felt her heart sink. They didn't believe her. That night, she cried in her room. She had trusted her parents to protect her, but now she felt alone. As the days passed, she became quieter. She no longer enjoyed the lessons. Every time she sat with Teacher Brown, she felt anxious. He continued his behavior and she felt powerless. But Mr. Smith and Mrs. Adan started to notice something. Nkechi was no longer the bright, cheerful girl she used to be. She seemed withdrawn, and there was a strange tension whenever Teacher Brown was around. Mr. Smith felt uneasy. Maybe we should pay closer attention, he told his wife one evening. Mrs. Adan nodded slowly. Yes, something isn't right. And so, out of curiosity, Mr. Smith made a decision. The next day, while Nkechi was at school, he installed a small CCTV camera in the study room. I just want to be sure, he told himself. Little did he know, the truth was about to be revealed. The next evening, Teacher Brown arrived as usual, greeting Mr. Smith and Mrs. Adan politely before heading to the study room. Nkechi followed, her heart pounding in her chest. She wished she could run away, but she knew she couldn't. As the lesson began, Teacher Brown moved closer than necessary. You're a very special girl, Nkechi, he whispered, his hand brushing her arm. Nkechi froze, her stomach twisting in fear. She glanced at the door, hoping her parents would walk in. Little did she know, everything was being recorded. Teacher Brown continued his lesson, but his behavior became more inappropriate. He leaned in closer than usual, his breath too near to Nkechi's ear. You know, Nkechi, I can make learning much more fun for you, he said with a strange smile. Nkechi shivered and inched away. She wished her parents would call her out of the study room, but they didn't. She had never felt so trapped. Let's take a short break, Teacher Brown suggested, putting his hand on Nkechi's knee. She flinched and immediately stood up. I need to use the restroom, she said quickly, her voice shaking. Of course, Teacher Brown said, watching her with an unsettling gaze as she rushed out of the room. She ran straight to her mother in the kitchen. Mama, please, I don't want to continue the lessons, she pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper. Mrs. Adan sighed. Nkechi, we've talked about this. You need to put in the effort. Go back and finish your lesson. Tears welled in Nkechi's eyes. Please, Mama. But her mother was already busy washing dishes. Defeated, Nkechi wiped her eyes and slowly returned to the study room. That night, after Teacher Brown left, Mr. Smith retrieved the CCTV footage and transferred it to his laptop. He wasn't sure what he expected to see, but he felt something was wrong. The next morning, before leaving for work, he decided to review the footage. As he pressed play, he saw the lesson begin normally. But then he noticed Teacher Brown leaning too close. The way he touched Nkechi's shoulder lingered too long. Then he saw it. The moment Teacher Brown placed his hand on his daughter's knee. Mr. Smith's blood ran cold. He rewound the footage, watching again, his fists clenching. The fear in Nkechi's eyes was unmistakable. His heart pounded as he realized what had been happening under his roof while he and his wife dismissed their daughter's concerns. Just then Mrs. Adan walked in. What are you watching? She asked casually, drying her hands with a kitchen towel. Without a word, Mr. Smith turned the laptop towards her and hit play. She watched in silence, her expression shifting from confusion to shock, then to horror. She covered her mouth with her hand. Oh my God, she whispered. She turned to her husband. What have we done? Mr. Smith stood up abruptly, rage building inside him. We ignored her. She told us and we didn't believe her. Mrs. Adan sank onto the couch, tears forming in her eyes. We failed her. At that moment, Nkechi entered the living room. She stopped when she saw their expressions. What's wrong? She asked cautiously. Mr. Smith walked over and pulled her into a tight embrace. I'm so sorry, my daughter. We should have listened to you. Nkechi's eyes widened. You believe me now? Mrs. Adan nodded, wiping her tears. We saw everything. A wave of relief washed over Nkechi, but the damage had already been done. I was so scared, she admitted, her voice trembling. Mr. Smith's face darkened. Teacher Brown will pay for this. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. Within minutes, he had arranged a meeting with the school principal and the authorities. That afternoon, they took the evidence to the police station and filed a report against Teacher Brown. Later that evening, as Nkechi sat with her mother, she finally felt safe. You believe me now? She asked again, needing reassurance. Mrs. Adan hugged her tightly. Always. From now on, I will always listen. That night, for the first time in weeks, Nkechi slept peacefully, knowing her silent cries had finally been heard. The following morning, Mr. Smith and Mrs. Adan accompanied Nkechi to the police station. The officers took their statements, reviewed the CCTV footage, and assured them that an investigation would begin immediately. Nkechi clutched her mother's hand tightly, feeling a mix of relief and lingering fear. By the afternoon, the police arrived at Teacher Brown's house. He was caught off guard when they knocked on his door. "Good afternoon, sir. We have a warrant for your arrest," one of the officers said firmly. Teacher Brown's eyes widened in shock. "What is this about?" he asked, feigning ignorance. "We have video evidence of inappropriate behavior towards a minor," the officer responded. "You need to come with us." As the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, Teacher Brown's face paled. The neighbors peeked out from their windows, whispering amongst themselves. His reputation was ruined. At home, Nkechi sat nervously, waiting for her parents to return. When they arrived, her father's face was still tense, but he managed a small smile. "It's over, my daughter. He's been arrested." A wave of emotions washed over Nkechi, relief, sadness, and a strange emptiness. She had spent so long feeling helpless that it was hard to believe it was finally over. In the following days, Nkechi's school principal called a meeting with all the parents. "We must ensure that such an incident never happens again," he declared. The school implemented stricter policies for private tutors and introduced a support system for students to report any form of misconduct. At home, Mrs. Adan made a promise to herself: she would never ignore Nkechi's words again. She and Mr. Smith spent more time with their daughter, asking about her day and making sure she felt heard and loved. Despite the nightmare she had endured, Nkechi began to heal. She focused on her studies, determined to prove that she was strong. With the help of a new, trustworthy tutor, she slowly improved in mathematics. One evening, as she sat with her parents, she looked up and smiled. "Thank you for believing me." Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. "We will always believe you, Nkechi. Always." And for the first time in a long time, she felt truly safe. As the days turned into weeks, Nkechi gradually adjusted to her new reality. Although the trauma of what she had endured still lingered, she found comfort in knowing that justice had been served. Her parents were more attentive than ever, constantly checking in on her feelings and progress at school. She took up a new hobby, painting. Her art became a way to express the emotions she struggled to put into words. Each brushstroke told a story of resilience and hope. Her parents encouraged her, displaying her paintings proudly around the house. Despite the progress Nkechi had made, healing was not an overnight process. There were nights when she still woke up in a cold sweat, her mind replaying the moments she had endured. But each morning, she reminded herself that she was no longer the frightened girl who had suffered in silence. Her parents arranged for her to see a therapist, someone she could talk to freely without fear of judgment. At first, she hesitated, unsure if it would help. But over time, she found comfort in speaking about her experiences. The weight on her chest slowly began to lift. One day, her mathematics teacher asked her to solve a problem on the board. Nkechi took a deep breath and stepped forward. She worked through the equation, her heart pounding, but she did it. When she turned around, the class applauded. It was a small victory, but to Nkechi, it meant everything. As time passed, Nkechi realized that her past did not define her. She was more than a victim, she was a survivor. And with every new day, she stepped further into her bright, promising future. Back at school, Nkechi found strength in her friendships. Some classmates whispered about what had happened, but others stood by her side, offering kindness and support. She no longer felt alone. The Smith family emerged from this ordeal stronger than ever, their bond fortified by their shared experience. They learned a valuable lesson about the importance of listening, of believing, of trusting their instincts. They learned that a child's voice, no matter how small, deserves to be heard, that their feelings are valid, and that their safety is paramount. They also learned that even in the face of adversity, love and honesty can prevail. They realized that true strength lies not in perfection, but in the willingness to acknowledge mistakes and learn from them. The Smith family story became a testament to the power of love, the importance of trust, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. They lived, knowing that no matter how difficult, they would always listen. As a parents, learn from Mr. Smith and Mrs. Adan. Don't let your children put all the blame on you because you close your ear on their words. Thank you for being a good parent.